I am Pastor Gregory Christopher. I'm the senior pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church. I live in Tacoma, have lived in Tacoma since 1976, and this is my story. My journey to where I'm at today, to my accepting my calling, was a very tough journey, and that I know that if it had not been for the grace of God, either I'll be in prison for the rest of my life, or I'll be dead, like so many other of my the men in my neighborhood. You know, so I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, and so I grew up in what we called back then the ghetto. And so it was pretty rough, both mentally and physically. Mentally, you know, seeing my mother struggle to take care of 4 boys on her own. You know, growing up having to fight all the time, have to, you know, try to stay alive. You know, it was tough, but there were some good times. You know, there were some good memories, but you know, that was a tough time in my life. So I got here in 1976. And you're right, I was still a very young man, I think 19 years of age, joined the military, came up here. And so when I got here to Tacoma through Fort Lewis, you know, I saw a city that was laid back. At least I couldn't identify where was the ghetto in the city of Tacoma. And so I thought this would be a good place to raise a family, and it turned out that it was and it is. In the African-American culture, men and women that are boys and girls that enter into the ministry, we feel that God called us into the ministry. So God called me into the ministry in 1989. And prior to that, I was doing ministry, but I didn't know that I didn't recognize the calling. It was a tough time in my life. I was doing prison time in Huntsville, in Texas, one of the worst places you could be at, and that's where God really began to do a work in my life. And growing up as a traditional Baptist, I didn't understand that. And so even there, you know, God had me ministering to men that had 40, 60 life sentences. I was on the run from Washington, and Washington got me out of Texas prison, brought me up here, continued to do what I was doing. Then when I got out of Shelton, then I joined my wife's church, and her son is a pastor, Pastor Lonnie Brown, and that's when I felt God call, or I recognized that God had a calling on my life. I'm not proud of my past, but by the grace of God, I've been able to use my past to be able to connect with a lot of people that are experiencing my past, and it literally gives them hope. So the word out on me is that Pastor Christopher, you know, he's the pastor of Shiloh, but he been through some of the stuff we've been through. So that's the connection that I have with a lot of persons out here. So I love sharing that story. Being able to follow a legend like the Reverend Dr. Ernest Stonewall Brazil, that was such a privilege, you know, I mean, because Dr. Brazil was one of those rare men. I mean, he was the city's pastor. I mean, that's why they named 12th Street after him. And then so now here come a man that walked a straight line with God and law. Then here come a person that has the worst background in the world that a person could have, and the Shiloh Church heard from God, and they elected me to be their next pastor, and it was a good transition, you know, because I saw Pastor Brazil as a dad, then my pastor. So he instilled in me some of the things that it takes to be a man. Since I grew up under a single mother, even to this day, I honor him. Even to this day, I'm quoting him through sermons, and he's a part of me, and the spirit that God had given him was instilled in me. I'm still teaching and preaching love and forgiveness. Love has to dominate my spirit. We have to be, regardless of how cruel some of the things that have happened to us personally or in our communities or with our families, we still have to have the spirit of forgiveness, because unforgiveness, it imprisons you. George Floyd and Manuel Ellis, those two killings, basically have rocked the nation. It has put a spotlight on systemic racism in law. Let me just say law enforcement, not just Tacoma, but I'm saying Tacoma because we're in Tacoma. I think we're at a place where we have to move past the conversation and actually just do it. Passing legislation that make things more equitable for everybody. We got way more good people in this country than we do with people that just are selfish, racist, greed-driven. We got way more good people in this country than we do people that are just out for themselves and would do anything by any means necessary to achieve their goal or to enrich themselves. So don't see this country from those lenses. This is still one of the best countries that a person could live in. Get into the ring and be a part of change. When we first saw this youth movement progressing is when they had this killing in Florida. Young people stood up. And then when this thing happened with George Floyd, we had so many of our babies begin to understand that they have been told a lie, that racism is dead, and all black people and people of color is doing is playing the race card. So they begin to see now that racism is not dead, and these babies have taken to the street, and their voices are being heard. I said, we got a lot of good babies, and so we want them to keep the pressure on, and then we'll go behind closed doors and try to negotiate and try to get their views and some of the things that they want passed. Because until we could take some of the things that they want and what we want and get laws and legislation passed, we won't get anywhere. So I've been really proud of our young people. We're very diverse here in Tacoma. If you keep your nose to the grind, you could come up. You could have good paying jobs. It's a caring city. When there's a tragedy, we know how to come together and raise funds to help the most vulnerable. I just really love Tacoma. Yeah. A lot of people don't understand this, that because I'm a pastor, they really can't understand why by nature, my DNA, I'm an introvert. So I have 2 gardens, I have flower beds, So I spend a lot of time, just piddling around my house, watching movies with my wife. It's hardly ever that you see me just hanging out with anybody. I'm a loner, So if I'm not here at the church, or if I'm not with the Tacoma Ministry Alliance, the NAACP, I say if the police wanted me, they could either come here, they could go to Home Depot, or they could go to Safeway, and they'll catch me. Eventually, I'm gonna show up in one of those 3 spots. So I tried to be fair. I tried to be non-judgmental, and that I tried to love people. If that's the legacy that I can leave, especially for my children and grandchildren, great-grand to follow, then when I see God, I'll be okay with that. A real change is coming. I really believe a real change is coming, and that people are gonna figure it out that we actually could all prosper. You know, naturally everybody's not gonna be a millionaire, but you labor for what you want, you know, but everybody be respectful. Everybody, you know, you don't have to cheat me. You know, to get ahead. You know, you don't have to, you know, go behind my back and you know and try to talk me down so that you get your project off the ground. So and I think that we're gonna get some legislation passed that's gonna help move that along. Yeah, I'm hopeful. Yeah, change is coming. It's coming because these babies are not gonna give up, and they're gonna hold us accountable. You know, if I don't continue to labor to try to do my very best, even though I have to try to make sure they understand what politics is really about. If you don't have the numbers in the Senate, in the House, in the county, in the city, if you can't get the numbers, you can't make the change. I am Pastor Gregory Christopher. I'm the senior pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church. I live in Tacoma, have lived in Tacoma since 1976, and this is my story.